This is all right, guys. I know I say it every single time, but listen, we have drag and drive. It's not drag and drive stuff. It's endurance racing, endurance driving legend here. This dude has crisscrossed the country in the last 2 weeks more than anybody has, I think, in a long time. Jay, tell them who you are, what you drove, and then let's not get too deep because I got to thank our podcast folks, but tell them who you are, what you drove, and where they can find you.
All right. Well, I'm Jay Roberts. I drove my wife's 2017 Prius in Cannonball run, or more specifically, the Musketball run for cars that had 100 horsepower or less. Drove from Connecticut to Los Angeles. Partied and had fun for a couple of days, and then I did a coast-to-coast run from San Diego to Jacksonville, Florida. You can find me on Instagram at GonzoPrius.
That's awesome. Dude, I can't wait to hear these stories because I was talking to Bryce and Matt, who were on the other day telling their story in their Volkswagen, and they were like, this guy is going to – they're like, just wait. And so they've got some questions they want me to ask a little bit as we go too. So, but first, before we get into all that fun stuff, I got to thank the guys that, as y'all can see, I haven't started tearing the podcast room apart yet. We went and visited my mom for a couple of days, ton of fun. So I'm starting on that this afternoon. That's why we're going to cut this one a little short. We're still going to go probably, I would say, an hour and a half, I would think. But I got to get this apart. Got to start getting our podcast official room put up. You guys can probably hear the fan in the background, the heater that's running for the shop. I want to fix all of that with this room. I want to take care of the lighting, make sure the lighting is good. Got to keep this mug going here. The guys that donated to help us do this, Tom Stark, Matt Monroe, Ryan Wing, Dino Cardella, Big Bad Daddy, the Cowboy Yankee, John Marat, Tyler Petram, and Donovan Green. Guys, I can't thank you enough. I just can't say it enough. Thank you so much for what you've done for us in the shop here and for us supporting us everywhere. So, all right, Jay, are you ready? Let's tell some stories.
Yes, sir.
So, but I want to start back a little bit because, like, I want people to understand you don't just walk into the Cannonball group. You don't just walk into Coast to Coast folks. So kind of back us up a little bit. Tell us where you, I mean, obviously we know why car people know about Cannonball, but like, how do you get into this group of, as Ed calls it, fraternity of lunatics?
Well, that was a kind of a long process for me to get in. About 3 years ago, I saw one of the Vin Wiki videos where he was interviewing some guys that did a Cannonball run. And at that point, I became a man obsessed with Cannonball. I mean, it's just this, that's the only way I know how to describe it. I watched all the videos, that anything I could find on YouTube about it, watched them again and again. Then I started looking into, I took a deep dive into the history of Cannonball.
Yeah.
It was looking up the original Brock Yates articles in Road and Track magazine and reading them. Then I ordered Brock Yates books, not just the Cannonball books, but all of his books. And then I, an often overlooked member of the Cannonball community is Hal Needham. Mm-hmm. He was the stunt driver, and the movie wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Hal Needham. You know? So read his autobiography. Naturally, it progressed from there to Alex Roy's biography, The Driver, and then to Ed Bolian's book. And so, I read those books 2 or 3 times, just back to back in that order. And it gave me a big feel of, the whole history of it and a lot of respect for it. From there, I was like, where can I find these guys? They're, in this modern era of social media, there has to be a group somewhere, somehow. And so doing some Googling, I got led to a website. I won't name it, but it deals with countermeasures that these guys use. Yeah. And a member there admitted that he had participated in a Cannonball run. So I just reached out to him privately. And we chatted back and forth for a period of months. I told him what I wanted to do, run a Prius in a Cannonball. And, rightly so, he kept me at arm's length for a pretty good while because, Prius, everyone hates a Prius. I mean, come on, I admit that. And so
Well,
eventually
here's what's funny about the Prius is I was the lead Prius sales guy at the Toyota store I sold cars at. I love it. I love the technology. I really felt like that was the future. But go ahead.
Yeah. So eventually, after he figured out that I was dead serious, he sent me a link to the private Musketball group, and I entered it in, and they accepted me. And I tell you, that was that was about 2.5 years into my search trying to find them. So, I was bouncing around the house, was celebrating. I'm in. The wife was looking at me going, "You're crazy. I can't believe it. I'm in." So from, once I got into the groups, I just dived deeper. I was looking into all of the posts and studying the history and how these guys did it, how they set their cars up. A shout out to Steve Brown. He probably doesn't know this, but I basically stalked him. Because, my intention from the get-go was to do this solo, and so who else better to stalk than the guys that did their solo runs, like Steve Brown and Fred Ashmore and Yumi and all the others. So that was how I weaseled my way into the group. Just snuck in through the back door. They didn't know who I was, and here I am today.
That's awesome. So now you're in. Now, walk us through, I guess, setup of the car, really, because that's what my main. That's how my brain works. I want to know how you set the car up, like fuel, the extra tanks, the pumps, how you feed into the tank, all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Well, my original plan, which didn't work out, but we'll get to that later, was I wanted to run it nonstop. I wanted to put the seatbelt on in Connecticut and not take the seatbelt off till I got to the Portofino at the end. Yep. I have a side gig where I do some emergency deliveries for a local defense contractor. When
there you go.
They call me, it's they have a part that has to be there right now, and they can't get any of their local shippers to get it there quick enough.
Yeah.
And so I use that as a training ground. It was like one time it took me 24 hours to drive from home to Iowa City, Iowa and back. 1,740 miles roughly round
That's
trip.
That's crazy. Yeah.
To deliver part. Another time it was was a Coast Guard ship that wasn't moving until this part got there in Mobile, Alabama. They called me on a Monday morning and said, "Hey, we're making the part now. Can you have it there by 8 a.m. tomorrow morning?" I was like, "No problem." Go to pick up the part, and it's still hot from being laser welded. Had to wait for it to cool down to put it in my car.
Wow.
And I made the round trip in just under 18 hours, but I was there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and to get this, Coast Guard ship that's not moving, that's not good.
That's a pretty bad situation.
It is. So I was happy to help them and get it going.
You're used to long distance endurance type stuff. That's a huge plus, I would think, going into this.
Yeah, prior to that, I was a FedEx delivery driver.
Okay.
So in the truck, 12, 14-hour days, and so staying in the car for an extended period of time became comfortable to me. And and being a FedEx delivery driver, I'm alone. I was always more comfortable by myself than when others were with me. So it just,
there you go.
Over years of doing that, it just became natural to me.
Yeah.
So getting to the setup, on those practice runs, there were several times where I did, hours long drive, sustained speeds of 90 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. I was wanting to calculate the fuel economy of the car, what would it get? And I was getting 43, 44 miles to the gallon. So,
at 90 miles an hour? That's pretty awesome. Now you can do the math backwards. Yeah.
And that's what I did. So I worked back, and I figured a worst case scenario of 40 miles to the gallon. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the distance of the Cannonball, roughly 2,860 miles. How much fuel do I need? So I purchased, come up with 75 gallons. That's the capacity of the setup that I used. I had two 32-gallon fuel tanks, auxiliary fuel cells with safety foam that I mounted in the back with two, and these ended up being overkill. I had two Holley 120-gallon per hour pumps.
Oh yeah, those are way overkill.
Yeah, it was way overkill.
Yep.
And each tank was isolated with a 12-volt electric ball valve. I didn't want to turn on one pump to pump it, and inadvertently it pumps instead of to the the car's tank, it pumps it into the other auxiliary tank and overflows and have a big mess. So I could isolate each individual tank as I pumped them, and had a James Bond style set up in the center console. You lift the lid and look, and there were two toggle switches for the ball valves, and then a push button switch for the actual pumps themselves.
There you go.
I didn't want a constant on toggle switch for the pumps, because so many of the guys, you hear the stories that they run the Cannonball and they turn on the pump and they forget about it, and someone comes up behind them, flags them down, says, "Hey, your fuel's coming out your gas cap." So my pump setup, I wanted a physical push button. So I had to be manually working the pump and not forget it.
So when you turned your pump on, you were holding the button to keep
Correct.
the pump running. Yep. And if I remember right now, it's been 6 or 8 years since I sold cars, but a Prius tank's like 16 gallons, probably, right?
It's 11.3
Oh
gallons.
wow! So yeah, it doesn't take long at 120 gallons per hour to once that one's low to fill up.
Well, and those pumps themselves turned out to be overkill, because in testing before I left, if you run the pumps more than 30 seconds, it filled up the fill pipe in the car, and it would burp gasoline out of the modified gas cap. So on the run, I would run the pump for 20 seconds. I would wait 2 minutes to let it, cycle down, and you could hear it gurgling, cycle down into the stock tank. And, and I was constantly switching back and forth between the left tank and the right tank. Run it 15 seconds, wait 2 minutes, watching the timer on the dash to keep up with it. So, and both of those tanks fed into a Y fitting and a small hose that come around into a modified gas cap. I just bought an extra gas cap and literally drilled a hole in it.
Yep.
Run the hose down through it and screwed it into the car's tank.
So the tanks you put in, were they? I've seen a picture on your Instagram with the hatch opened up. Were they stacked? I guess like back seat and then here, or were they sideways? I don't remember.
They were sideways, left and right. If you're looking at the open the hatch in the back of the car. I took some product, I think you call it a unistrut, that it's used for electrical work to hang, like circuit breaker boxes and stuff on.
Yep.
And I cut up a couple pieces of that, drilled holes in the back of the car, and riv nuts. Those were physically fastened into the car. Yep. And then I fabricated some metal brackets that is for straps to hold down the tanks that went around and bolted down. And
that's cool.
Grounded them all in. So it took quite a bit of engineering. My biggest concern was safety. I wanted those tanks bolted down, solid, not shifting, locked. 64 gallons of fuel in the back.
That's
and
a lot.
Literally inches away is the hybrid battery. That could have been bad if filled in that car.
You'd have been a rocket ship for sure if something had happened.
I had a 5-pound fire extinguisher up front just in case, but I was thinking about it. It's like, if this goes off, I don't know if the fire extinguisher is going to save me or not, but there it is.
Yep.
So,
VX Ace here is saying that he says, I'm not sure, or she says, I'm not sure the Prius fill hole was designed to be filled at 120 gallons per minute.
no, it wasn't.
That's right. That's right.
A lot of the other guys had used those little cheap Holley Mighty Mite fuel pumps in their setup, and there was, multiple reports of them failing during a run. Those little $20, $30 pumps, and that was the main reason I went with the Holley pumps. Is in a solo attempt, I could not afford to have those pumps fail.
Yeah,
and so I went overkill with the higher value pumps.
Yeah, you weren't going to have time to stop every 11 and a half gallons and pump and all that kind of stuff. So that makes sense.
Exactly.
What do you think you'll go to on the next setup? Like, how far do you think you'll drop to, like a 30 gallon per hour pump or something like that? Or
I'll probably use the same pumps, but I'll plumb in a regulator to dial.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, there you go.
That'd be a simple solution to it.
Yeah.
Instead of buying something extra, use what I already have.
Right. And then my thought process was, and I don't know how your fuel line was ran, but could you have wide and just ran a single pump? Like come in, like use the pump to pick up from after the Y, and then ball valve the things closed.
Yeah, I thought about that, but I wanted a bit of control with each individual tank.
Makes sense.
Initially I used the tank that was positioned on the driver's side of the car behind me first, mainly just to help offset some weight.
Balance,
might help keep the balance of the car a little bit better.
Yep.
So with and also in the tanks themselves, I installed a Holley Hydromat pickup system. Looks like and so I wanted to get every drop of fuel available. Yep. The little duckbill pickups leave gallons left in a tank that size.
Well,
so with the Hydromat, I was getting every drop.
Are you on those tanks? Are you picking from the top then? Or is your fuel line coming? Like, is it sucking up, or was it a sump in the back?
Yeah, it was the Holley Hydromat in the bottom of the tank, and a hose straight up that fed out of the top of it to the pump.
That makes sense. Yeah, the Hydromat is the Hydromat's definitely the way to go on a setup like that, just from a standpoint of trying to get every bit of fuel out of that. Because while you're still moving straight, once you're at speed, that the fuel is going to settle. Like when you accelerate, it all comes to the back. That's why race cars have sumps in the back. But like in your case, even at I saw an alleged picture of 115. That was probably kph, not mph. Or on a closed course.
Allegedly.
That fuel's going to settle, especially with the foam. That fuel's going to eventually settle once you get going. And so if it's draining like this, you need it to get every single drop you can, especially if you're planning 40 miles a gallon. You'll never get that consistently the whole way across. So, if you do the math, you had 3,000 miles of fuel at 40 miles per gallon, but that's not including, the little bit of stop and go I'm sure you would run into, and which the Prius is better at. But then the rapid acceleration is going to be, anything over about 25 or 30 is going to be taken by the gasoline engine instead of the electric motor. So,
exactly. My wife just stuck her head into her, said, "Good luck." It was her car, by the way. My name's not even on the registration. The conversations, I'm drilling holes in her car and mounting gas tanks, hooking up pumps and ripping the interior part to running wiring. And she comes out and she goes, "I don't want to watch this. I don't want to see this." Just
you're like, "I need some help getting this wire." And she's like, "Nope."
No, but she was 100% in support of me. She knew, we had long conversations. This was an itch I had to scratch, and she let me get it out of my system, But now that I'm hooked, I don't know if it's ever going to get out of my system.
Matt has a good question here. He says, "Tell him about towing your camper with the car," which I think, based on your pictures, is your Prius, not her Prius, right?
Well, both of them I've done quite a bit of towing. Her car's done more of it. Back in it was Black Friday 2016. We bought a little pop-up camper. Now, this camper is designed to be towed behind a motorcycle. It weighs a little over 300 pounds.
Yeah.
And by Black Friday 2017, we had taken this camper and visited 44 states in 12 months, camping, national parks, state parks, been to 10 Canadian provinces.
You're an animal.
Yeah. And, towing a camper with a Prius. Yeah, I did it.
Yeah.
And so
That's
that
awesome.
was, a unique experience of, just long-term driving, dealing with the weight and everything. So that gave me a lot of experience.
Yeah, because like at 300, but what does 75 gallons of fuel weigh? I mean, it's 8 pounds a gallon, right? Or is it 6 pounds?
Yeah, it's 6 pounds a gallon, and so it comes up roughly 375 pounds.
That's like a big dude sitting in the back seat.
Exactly. Yeah. The when I was camping, we first started towing it. There was
VX Ace's retired life.
Retired life. He's a personal friend of mine. I'll give him a shout out in a minute. He was a big help on this run. A very big help. Towing a camper had people, they would flash their high beams at me, tell you turn your high beams off. I'm like, they're on low beams. What's going on? And figured out the weight of the camper made the nose of the car come up.
Yep.
So I modified the car with some helper airbags, and that raised the back end up and kept my lights, so people are no longer flashing me. And that was a big help on the run because I weighed the pumps and the tanks and calculated with fuel, I was pushing almost 500 pounds total weight in the back. Yep. Those airbags helped a great deal, and just maintaining the car at a level plane, not blinding people, and through some of the curves and the canyons and mountains we were dealing with, it handled much better with that fuel.
That's cool. So, based on some pictures you've posted on your Instagram, again, GonzoPrius on Instagram, I see North Carolina tags. So walk us through. So you've ran now 40, you figured up 40 miles per gallon is what you're going to get at, allegedly 90 miles an hour. So you leave North Carolina and you're headed to Connecticut. Like, are you seeing a change in mile per gallon? Are you making, are you staying around that same speed? Like, walk us through that trip.
Yeah, the drive up, I was running, normal highway driving speeds, even though the tanks were full. So I was getting, the drive up, I got 48 miles to the gallon from North Carolina to Connecticut. Normal Prius fuel economy. I got to the start party, met the guys, and I can't say what an awesome group of people these people are. They had never met. Yeah, they had never met me in person, and they welcomed me like a long lost member of the family, a brother or something. Just every single one of them. There was a moment. There was a big dinner the night before the event, and I'm sitting there and I'm looking around the room, and I won't name drop, but I'm seeing these people that were an inspiration to me, and I literally had to pinch myself. It's like, wow, these guys, it's everything they have done have inspired me to be there doing this, and
that's
it's just
cool.
An unreal experience, to be involved with. And so loved every minute of it.
Well, and then at that point, I mean, based on our conversations, you're 2.5, 3 years into getting in. Like, your foot's in the door a little bit, and now you're at the event. So I can only imagine what 2.5 or 3 years worth of prep has done in research, and then also in just sheer brutality, getting the car ready and testing and all that kind of stuff. And now you're here and you're like, oh my God, let's go.
Yeah. And so earlier that day was the dyno event. All the cars for this event had to have 101 horsepower or less at the wheels.
Yeah.
And John Facard, big shout out to him. Thanks for putting this event on and managing it. I can't thank you enough for that. He gave everybody these lobster stickers and to go around and put on the cars they wanted to be dynoed. There wasn't enough time to dyno every car.
Yeah.
I just volunteered to put my car on it because I was curious.
Yeah.
How much horsepower does a Prius actually make? No one really knew. I've did some research, and I know it's going to be close either way. Turns out it makes 102 horsepower at the wheels on a dyno. So I was
Nice.
one horsepower over. So I feel like I kept within the spirit of the event.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I took my penalties in stride. Actually, the penalties were kind of fun.
I was gonna say you could do you probably do 87 octane in it, and it'd make 100.
Yeah, exactly. I probably could put a dirty air filter in it or something like that, and could knocked it down. But I didn't want to cheat. I wanted to be straight up legit. The number I get is what I get, and
you're so close. So what was the penalty, if you're allowed to tell us?
Yes, I am. A few of the cars were way over. A couple of them were more than 20, 25 horsepower over. They had to. It was a layered penalty. Each of us had to assemble a puzzle, and the puzzle had to be completed before the start the next day and glued or fastened to the hood of the car. In my case, it was a 100-piece puzzle. The next up was a 300-piece, and the worst offender, or cheater, as we jokingly labeled them, had a 500-piece puzzle.
Oh my God, I can't imagine.
Yeah, and then an additional penalty, you had to carry 10 pounds of additional weight in concrete form for every horsepower over.
Oh, ouch.
Yes. So, but John, being the creative genius he is, he come up with an option to get out of all the penalties. And you had to go purchase a live lobster. You had to remove the bands from its claws. The lobster had to be living, fresh, alert at the start, and it had to be living, alert, and fresh at the end. If the lobster died en route, your time will be unadmissible. You'll be vanished, as if you never took part in the event.
That was funny. Too fun. I knew
one of the teams was like, "We'll do the lobster option," and then they started Googling on their phones and talking with other people there that knew a lot more about lobsters, and they decided, no, it's probably not a good idea.
They're like, we'll just put our 300-piece puzzle together.
Yeah, and go stick a bunch of fuel in the weight in the car.
That's hilarious.
But my weight, I got back to the room and I assembled the puzzle, which took me an hour and 15 minutes to put this thing together. It was a Pokemon puzzle, and it was only 4 colors, and all the shapes were exactly the same. So you couldn't one piece look like the other. You just had to one by one put it together, and I got it done. Like now, and then, John did give us some Elmer's glue to glue it. I got it done, went back to the garage where everybody's working on their cars, and I was talking with Fred Ashmore, and he gave me some stuff where was decaling the Hawaiian Tropic car to kind of, patch it together. Yep. And he goes, I wish some of you guys would take some of my tools as part of your penalty. And I'm like, well, what do you got?
Yeah.
He looks around, hands me these 2 giant jack stands. And John was standing over there, and these jack stands probably weighed, 8-10 pounds each. I handed the jack stands to John. I'm like, will these serve as my penalty? And John picks them up, and he's like, looks at me and goes, nah, this is only about 8 pounds. You need 2 more pounds. I look at Fred. I'm like, what else you got? He goes, I got a Sawzall. And I'm like, will that do, John? So I'm like, all right, that'll work. So that ended up being my weight penalty, is carrying some of Fred's tools.
Yeah, that's cool, man. That's pretty neat.
Now the other guys, they showed up with they couldn't find concrete, so they had 40-pound bags of water softener. You know, one of the members of their team was like, I need water softener in my house so it won't go to waste, so we'll just use this. And they were trying to stuff it under seats and in floorboards. It was entertaining to watch them figure out where they're going to put all this stuff in their car.
Yeah, 40 pounds of that's a big mess. You know, like trying to. I mean, it's just a big bag of, you know, probably a 10-pound bag, I would think, or 20-pound bag, as it broke down. So yeah.
So it was entertaining, but yeah. But it turns out my fuel economy calculations were way off. You know.
Well, hang on, but before we move into that, VX Ace says, so your penalty was to ferry other people's junk, ? In case they break down.
I didn't think of that, but it's a good point. You know, somebody would have needed those jack stands and that Sawzall.
You could have just thrown them as you drove by.
Just rode by and flung them out the sunroof. You know, here you go, catch.
That's funny. All right, so back to what you were saying.
Yeah. So my 40 miles to the gallon for this run figure was way off. You know, at triple-digit speeds, the Prius doesn't get 40 miles a gallon. Matter of fact, it doesn't get 30 miles to the gallon.
Oh my gosh, are you serious? I guess because you're probably running at that point. You're running on, you know, your only gasoline engine, so there's no assistance really, and with the weight you're carrying, it probably needs the horsepower at that speed to carry it. So yeah. Anyways, sorry.
Yeah, I basically, once I got through past Chicago when the traffic let up, from there it was, you know, many hours. I basically threw a brick on the pedal and, you know, and kept it there. I had to feather it from time to time because I was noticing that the hybrid battery was getting down to just 1 bar.
Oh, wow.
And so when it'd get down to 1 bar, I'd run it for a couple of minutes, and then I'd feather off and drop back, you know, about 5 miles an hour to let the battery charge up. Yeah. You know, because you didn't want it to go into limp mode or turtle mode. You know, if the hybrid battery got down to near dead, it would go into limp mode, and you had to limp along at 40 miles an hour till it recharged completely. So you definitely
you can't do that.
No, and so that never happened on any of the runs. But I was very, you know, aware of it and watching it. So I'd back off 2-3 miles an hour, and battery would charge up, and it'd get up to 3 or 4 bars, and I'd throw it to the floor again. And it was 15 minutes later, I'm just cycling back and forth with that.
What's the difference in speed at that? Like, is it 110 to 115 like I saw you post?
Yeah, 115 allegedly. I'll say that allegedly. That is as fast as a 4th generation Prius will go. Downhill with a tailwind, it won't do anymore, no matter how hard you push it.
So, you know, you and I were messaging, or I was commenting on one of the posts or something. I wonder if there's got to be some tuner software out there that you could go in and maybe manipulate that a little bit, you know, to one, either provide another 8 or 10 horsepower from the gasoline engine, you know, to get a little more speed, or you know, maybe manipulate how the electric assist at that speed. So
yeah, there's got to be something, and I could feel it doing something through the pedal. It was, you know, you're going along and it hit 115, and it was like an old carbureted car when it's about to run out of gas, and you kind of you feel it stumble a little bit, and it would do that briefly and go, and so it's just, you know, constantly going back and forth. So there was something that electronically limited that speed. I figure it, I mean, on my speculation, it might be a safety issue, kind of like some of your Chevy and GMC trucks, or their top speed is limited because there's an issue with one of the drive shaft bearings, you know, the cushion in it that's rated, you know, at 125, 130 miles an hour, and that's where they keep the speed at. It could be that. It could be, the speed rating of the tires. They limit it to not exceed that speed rating. I don't know, just speculation on my part, but there is something there that
I would definitely, speed limiter is probably what it is now. Once you get above that, I don't know how much more you would probably have, but I mean, the car makes 102 horsepower. Like, could you get it to make 120? But at that point, you're carrying 250 pounds worth of weight.
Yeah, exactly.
Bryce Mays asked before we get back into it, how many gallons of fuel did you end up using? And I'd like to split that into Connecticut to LA, because we're also going to talk fuel from Dog Beach to Jacksonville.
All right. Well, I ended up pulling over in a small town of Brush, Colorado, and I topped off just my auxiliary tanks only and added 57 gallons there. And that carried me through the rest of the event. There was still a lot of gas, left in those auxiliary tanks.
Yep.
And I looked it up, and I used just a little over 100 gallons total.
Wow, that's great.
Coast-to-coast run. I mean, on the Musketball run.
Bryce, tell us how many gallons you guys used across there. I know I think they stopped twice. And then if any other guys that ran in the Musketball or have done this event, how many gallons you used across there. So let us know in the comments or chat there.
Oh, and Bryce and Matt, those guys are the real deal. I got to say. They're just some of the coolest people I met in the last couple of weeks. It was an honor to run with them and get to know them.
That's awesome. Bryce said they only use 75-ish.
Yeah, the TDI diesels at triple-digit speeds are much more efficient than the Prius. Is what I've come to learn.
That's cool.
I love you too, Bryce.
There you go. That's cool. So just so you're aware, the chat runs about 15 seconds behind us. So, so there'll be some times in the conversation that we'll jump back a little bit. But I'm also reading them out loud for the podcast folks that'll be listening to this later.
All right. Because, understood, Mike.
If you're going to be on the road for how long did it take you to get Connecticut to LA?
It took me 36 hours and 55 minutes.
Let's talk music choice. I mean, were there podcasts in there? What do you listen to when you're driving for 36 hours straight?
It was mostly background noise. I subscribed to Pandora Premium for 1 month. Only reason I went with Pandora Premium is because you could set the quality of the feed down so it wouldn't use up so much data on the phone.
Makes sense.
That was a consideration.
Yeah.
And I kept it on one channel the entire time. And there was the band, they have this one song that pretty much became my motto, my theme song of the run, and the band Cake. And they have the song The Distance. If you know the words of the song, you know how it fits in. He's going for distance, he's going for speed, all alone in his time of need. It's just so many words of it. And so I kept it on Cake Radio.
Yeah, Bryce says, how many times did you re-listen to that Cake album?
So I just had on Pandora Cake Radio, and they, played stuff from other bands as well. But every time that the Distance song would come on, it got cranked. It was a motivator. Just keep me pumped up, keep me excited, keep me going on the run.
That's too cool. That is too cool. So you filled up. You said in Colorado, you put 57 gallons in, and then ran all the way in.
Yep.
Did you guys run into any weather? I didn't even ask them. Did you run into any weather across the Rockies?
I didn't run into any weather, but I run into another incident that was a heartbreaker.
Oh no!
It was an absolute heartbreaker for me. So coming into Akron, Ohio, Akron, Ohio is a turning point. There's basically two accepted routes to run a Cannonball. You have your northern route, which takes you through, Iowa, Nebraska, Colorado, down through Vegas and in. And you have your southern route, takes you through St. Louis, Oklahoma, across New Mexico and Arizona. I, before the run, was committed to the southern route. That was my plan all along. About 30 minutes before I got into Akron, Ohio, Google Maps pops up and it says, a faster route has been found. Do you want to take it? And I was like, well, what's this? So I clicked routes, and it showed that the northern route was going to be 2 hours and 15 minutes faster than the southern route. And so I had a virtual team of spotters, some awesome guys that were helping me, and asked them to check it, and they come back with similar things. I said, well, all right, fellas, we're taking the northern route.
Yeah.
And, the majority of them took the southern route. And there was an app we were using called Joiner, where we could share each other's location.
Yep.
And when I got to Chicago and I looked on the map, everybody else is down in, just coming into St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm up in the front, and I looked, I'm like, holy cow, I'm in the lead. How is this possible? And that motivated me to push harder.
Yeah. You're going 113, now you're going 115.
Yeah. And there was a 4-hour window. My virtual team, every hour on the hour, I had an alarm set on my phone. They would chime every hour. At the start, I zeroed all my trip computers in the car. When that alarm would go off, I'd press save on my dash cameras in the car, and I would text my virtual team what my the trip odometer reading was, and what my miles per gallon was. And VXA's there. He was in the backgrounds building me a spreadsheet. He was punching all this data in. And so it was an hour. I gave them the numbers, and they come back and said, you did 92 miles this hour. It's like, well, okay, let's go for 100 next hour. The next hour was 98. The next hour was 102. The next hour was 106.
Dang, that's crazy.
Yeah. There was a 4-hour window that I did well over 400 miles in 4 hours. There was nothing out there, no traffic.
Yeah.
But it was during that time it became clear that I didn't have enough fuel to make it the entire distance. And so I knew coming into after Denver through the Rocky Mountains that my my times were going to go down. At one point I was up to right at 87 miles per hour average speed that I had done so far. And every time I look over on the Joiner app, I'm getting further and further ahead. I'm like, holy cow, I might turn in a great time for this thing.
Yeah.
Let's just keep going. Let's just keep hammering down. Let's keep running it. Coming through I-70 through the canyons in the Rocky Mountains, come around a curve, all of a sudden ahead of me, see nothing but brake lights.
Oh no!
Come to a dead stop in the highway. Yeah, it was just I hung my head. I was like, oh no, this I'm done.
Because they're catching you at that point. They're catching you. Yeah.
Sit there, stop for 37 minutes.
Oh my God! How long was that? 37 minutes.
It felt like 10 hours. Turns out there was a tractor trailer accident ahead of us. It jackknifed and spilled milk all over the road, shut down the road. So they looped us back over a bridge. I had to go back 5 miles the other way.
Oh no!
Then get on this winding 2-lane road that wasn't meant for tractor trailers, but all the tractor trailers were routed on it. So we're going 10, 15 miles an hour around curves and over bridges. This went on for 48 miles before I got around the wreck and back on Interstate 70.
Oh my God! Now at this point, with you guys doing like the Le Mans style start, who else went Northern route with you? Because they're probably in the same mix with you, right?
They were. I know. I think the guys in the diesel swapped Insight. I believe it was Arnie. I believe it was Arnie Toman, Doug Talbot. I believe they were together. They were up there. There was a team in the Cool Wrapped Fiat. They were in the Northern route, and I think that was it. The rest of them were all in the Southern route. So
Man.
There may have been one more on the Northern route. I'm trying to remember, but yeah, there weren't many of us up there, so we all had to deal with that.
Asshole on YouTube says that reroute was devastating.
It was just, as soon as I pulled up and stopped, I just hung my head. It just totally deflated, because here for the last 6-7 hours, I'm like, and damn, I'm going to beat these guys in a freaking Prius. It's just I got a great team in the background. Just keep hammering, keep going.
Yeah.
Just get every inch of speed you can and just keep running it, and all of a sudden just have it to come to an immediate end right there.
Man, that's wild.
But that's the nature of Cannonball. If you studied the history and watched the videos, you know that winning a Cannonball is part of its prep, and the other part of it is just sheer pure luck. There's things that happens out on the road that you have absolutely no control of. The weather, the accidents, the traffic. You just make the best of what you can.
Right. Bryce, you're saying we were 100% racing with you, 1,200 miles between us on the Southern route.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's cool about the app is like you could see, everybody that was on it, you could see where they were in the mix. So
yeah, it was. And so, after that wreck, and I reached, kind of a low point. I was pretty depressed, feeling pretty bad. Because I put so much planning and so much effort, and I was hoping to do a sub 33, 34-hour run, and I was on track. I was around a 32-hour range run at that point. Yeah. And but again, there's no guarantee, because anything could have happened after that. But the other guys on the run, it was amazing. They're sending me messages, it's like, you got screwed, but keep coming, you got this, you're going to do this, keep going. My wife, my family, they were sending me words of encouragement. And that bit of feeling deflated and defeated quickly changed and turned, And it's like, you know what? Your life doesn't suck. You're these guys you just met days earlier, and they're cheering you on and rooting for you. And the Cannonball is a lot bigger than beating the record and coming in with the lowest time.
Yeah.
It's about perseverance.
Yeah.
And what you can accomplish.
Staying with it. Yeah. Asshole says the RDF crew had your back, Jay.
They did. Every one of them. I know who that is.
That's awesome.
And so, it was just in coming into the finish line, there at the sign at the Portofino, all the teams that would finish before me, they were there en masse waiting for you, giving me hugs, shaking hands, taking pictures, cheering me on. My wife flew out there. She was standing there with a bottle of whiskey and a sack of In-N-Out burgers for me. Big hugs, big kiss. So the trophy girl wasn't there, but my trophy wife was. So that was
there. You go.
Well,
hey, speaking of whiskey, I heard something. Bryce messaged me, or maybe it was Matt, and said that to prep for this, you detoxed caffeine and booze.
I did.
Tell us that story.
Well, hello, my name is Jay. I'm addicted to Mountain Dew. I had a serious caffeine habit involved Mountain Dew. And
Yeah.
reading what Steve Brown and others had done, I realized that, the caffeine crash is serious, and I was experiencing that out on a daily basis.
Yeah.
You wake up in the morning and drink one or two of them by, 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you're just dead. Your body just can't handle it. So starting months out, I dropped down to one a day. And I did that for a couple of months. And then I backed off to every other day, then once every 3 days. On October 15th, I cut it completely out. No caffeine, no alcohol for 30 days before the run.
You are an animal.
Yeah. So on the drive up to Connecticut on the Saturday before the run, I drank one small can of Mountain Dew. I wanted to see how my body would react to it. It hit me like a hammer. I mean, I was jittery. My heart was racing, and this was just minutes after drinking. I was like, okay, well, you can't do that on the run.
Yep.
So when I did hit the caffeine during the run, I waited till I just, as long into the run as I could before I used it. And then when I did use it, it was small amounts. I only drank 1.5 bottles of Mountain Dew, and I did one shot of 5 Hour Energy. And that was about 2 hours before the end. And that was it.
And you were up for 36 hours straight driving. Like Pete, I hate driving to the beach and it's 12.
Yeah.
So like imagine 3 of those trips. And then, we mentioned it earlier, but dude, you were solo. Like, we talked earlier about why solo driving is good for you. If you guys are new here and just popped in, he was a FedEx driver for a long time, has done some contract driving for distance. So solo driving is not a new thing for you. But that kind of solo is, I would think, different just because like in your other stories you were telling, like you were going somewhere and then back. So this is like you're going the distance, man. You're going, you're going to LA.
Going the distance, going for speed.
Yeah. So
there was things that I had set up in my car to, make my life more comfortable. Lessons I learned from the delivery runs. After 4 or 5 hours in the car, your face feels oily. You feel like a herd of buffalo's been running around in your mouth. You feel disgusting. So I kept baby wipes and face wipes in the car, and so I would set the cruise, drop it down, the speed down a little bit, and about every 4 or 5 hours, and I would grab some baby wipes, and I would just simply wash my face, wash my neck, wipe off the steering wheel, just the sweat on your hands from the steering wheel. I'd put that back. I had toothbrush and toothpaste in the car, and I would just simply brush my teeth. A couple of minutes, and it would recharge you. Just that simple move of washing your face and brushing your teeth. It would recharge you and energize you and help keep you going. And so those were some of the lessons I learned.
That's pretty smart. I will say hey to Carl Steamy. See you in a couple weeks, bud, on sick week.
Another thing I did, most of the run, I didn't have my shoes on. I was in socked feet. Yeah. My feet would get sweaty, so I would just take my shoes off, and they were sitting on top of the cooler beside of me. And, just little things like that to, keep comfortable.
What I think would be neat to just, and probably just more of inquisitive in my brain, is like I wonder what your heart rate is during that trip compared to, like a normal driving situation. Like if you're driving 80 and you're going on vacation, what's your heart rate then compared to, 108 miles an hour for 3 hours in a Prius with 90 or 75 gallons of fuel behind you? Like what's the difference? It's pretty neat.
Yeah, I guess it's something you work up to. Is it's like these pro athletes. They train and they train and they train for years and years and years to get to Olympic level or professional level. And I feel like I've trained for years at driving that style to get to that point. And it probably wasn't as crazy as a heart rate as you would imagine. I'm an avid scuba diver.
Gotcha.
And it's when I go scuba diving, my heart rate actually drops, drastically drops.
Wow.
I just hundreds of dives and experience, and when I get in the water, it's my happy place.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's a calming effect on your body.
Yeah, and driving is my other happy place.
Yeah.
And so I think that my heart rate was managed and wasn't crazy. There was a few moments it spiked up.
Yeah.
We won't get into details of those, but but for the most part, it was kept reasonable.
So as I'm thinking there, I'm thinking about how 108 miles an hour, 110 feels normal. So you come up behind a set of semis, and they're going 62 miles an hour, or 65. How slow does that feel?
It feels like I could have got out the car and walked past them. I mean, that's what it felt like.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, I can't imagine these guys that have done the runs where you hear some of the stories. We never got over 175. And they were in cars that were much more suited for those speeds. The Prius wasn't intended to run these speeds, let alone sustained at those speeds for hours at a time. And I was surprised at how well it did it. I did some service work on the car yesterday. I changed the oil, and after a little over 6,000 miles of driving in 7 days, it didn't burn a drop of oil.
You are crazy, man. You are a crazy man. 6,000 miles in 7 days.
Yes. 6,000 miles in 7 days. So
that's insane. That is insane. That's so cool. So all right, I've got to move on. I gotta quit stopping you. We're limited on time. We only got about 30 minutes here. We still got to talk about your run the other direction. So
the coast run.
So you pull into Portofino. Everybody's there, popping champagne, having fun. Bryce and Matt both said you guys partied it up pretty hard. He didn't say if you partied it up, but he said the team partied it up pretty hard. How long did you sleep? What was recovery time? And then, you obviously had the planned run back, but how long did you rest in between?
Well, that first night, I went to sleep it was about 10 p.m. West Coast time when I finally went to sleep. As best as I can figure. It might have been 11, it might have been 12. I don't know. There was some alcohol involved. So I'm not 100% certain of the exact time. I woke up at 3:30 a.m. wide awake. Now, I'm an East Coaster. I'm a farmer. I rise with the chickens. So my body was telling me it's time to get up. Yeah. It's 6:30 on the East Coast. And I got up just wide awake and went walking around outside. I made a real quick video to my wife watching.
Says,
So it was 10:30. All right, so we got that cleared up. I was made a quick video to thank my virtual team that was helping me, and around in the parking lot. Went back, slept a little bit more, and went out for breakfast a little later. The next night was the awards party where they handed out awards for everybody, and they had a big dinner afterwards. I didn't attend the dinner because I promised my wife I would take her out to eat.
There you go.
Just her and I out away, and so the guys who was all at the dinner wondering where I was enjoying myself with my wife out alone.
Yeah, little honey-do list there. Gotta treat her. She lets you drive her car. I mean, let's be honest, and then two, I don't know how many times you guys are in LA, but you got to do that. And Carl Steamy says, "Happy wife, happy life."
Exactly.
And I mean, she flew out to be with you when you came in, so
Yes.
that's pretty cool.
I took her out to one of the finest dining establishments on the West Coast. We went out to In-N-Out Burger and had
There you go.
some double doubles, some fries, some shakes, and you know, had a good time. So yeah,
That's cool.
So, and then the next morning we had to get up at 3:30 a.m. To depart to get her to LAX in time to catch her 6 a.m. flight back home.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So dropped her off, drove down to San Diego. The gas station closest to Dog Beach in San Diego. I filled up all of my gas tanks, put every drop of fuel I could into the car. Went to Dog Beach, made a quick video, and posted it on the Musketball's private group that I was going to attempt a coast-to-coast run.
That's
posted
cool.
it, got in the car, and 7 minutes after 7 Pacific Coast time, I hopped in the car and drove away, heading east.
Dude,
So,
that's all right. Let me walk through this here for folks that don't understand. You've just musketballed your way across the states, one corner to the other, in 36
solo.
hours. Yeah, solo, by yourself, 36 hours. Okay?
Correct.
You go to sleep at 10 p.m. the night you arrive after some enjoyable libations with friends. You go to dinner the next night with the wife. At 3:30 the next morning, you're getting up in the car and you're fixing to mad dash back. Because in your mind, when am I going to be in LA or Southern California in a car again that is prepped for this? So I'm making the run back. That's
exactly.
I can only imagine that's the thought process.
I had, you know, and the wife and I had long conversations about it. She didn't want me to do the coast to coast run. She wanted me to come straight home, you know, and she had some deep concerns about it, and rightly so, and I very much appreciated that.
Yeah,
But,
Carl says
you know,
respect.
Yeah. But I was like, you know, I got to drive home anyway, and the drive home from L.A. to home or L.A. to Jacksonville, it isn't really that much difference, so I'm just going to go for it. And I did. And
That
my
is
intent
awesome.
was to do it nonstop, you know, and I almost made it. I think if I would have slept one more day, I would have done it nonstop.
Yeah.
But there was a point in the run where I
hang on. Back up. Let's not tell that part yet, because so you've gone what 2,890 miles, I think it was.
Yep.
Connecticut, something like that. And then what is San Diego to Jacksonville or Dog Beach to Jacksonville?
It's 2,400 miles.
Okay, so you're saving 400 miles, almost 500. Let's call it. So your brain is like, okay, I can do this, and then so you leave. I mean, where you're talking about this story here, there's a lot of time in between, like, and a lot of different states. Like, were any of the states the same that you came down? They wouldn't be, right? Because you would have.
No, they would.
So
since I took the northern route,
it's
a totally different route. The only state I had in common was California.
Oh, that's so cool. So you're getting to see tons of the country. Not that you haven't seen parts of the country already because of your trips before, but now you're going to take a completely new route that, you know, you've done. I mean, you've prepped for it because you did your research beforehand, obviously, because you were planning this run. But like now you're at it again. Okay, so you leave California, you're hauling it. Is the car getting better mileage? Is it?
It was getting better mileage, and that was by choice. You know, I knew what the records were for the coast-to-coast runs, and I knew there was no way that this particular car could break any of those records.
Yep.
So it was pointless to push it at, you know, triple-digit speeds and go crazy with it. I just wanted to. It was just a bucket list item, and I wanted to do it, and I hoped to do it nonstop.
Yeah.
You know, I had a friend of mine, and I think it was. Asshole that was chiming earlier. I think that's who it is. He met me in Houston on my run back.
Nice.
And he met me in his BMW sport wagon. Met me in Sealy, Texas, and drove me all the way through, led me all the way through Houston into Beaumont, Texas, which is a pretty long run.
Yeah.
Houston was a blur at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning with a great guy leading the way,
Yeah.
and I was pushing the car hard to keep up with his, obviously much more superior and capable vehicle than what I was driving.
Right.
But it was an awesome experience, just blowing through Houston. Had a scary moment right towards the end out of Beaumont, Texas. Those pesky Dodge Charger taillights that give all of us scofflaws a brown stain moment.
Yep.
We would come in, and there was 2 of them side by side ahead of us.
Oh,
worst case scenario. So we hitched down. Turns out they weren't law enforcement, creaked by them, and but that was a bit of a delay. And we rolled down the windows, beeped and waved at each other, and he pulled off in Beaumont, Texas, and I continued on the way.
That's pretty cool. And so I would think that would probably help a little bit of rejuvenation.
It was, because I was struggling a bit, staying awake just before that.
Yeah.
And
any caffeine from LA to Texas at this point?
I did, and my wife bought me some chocolate-covered coffee beans.
Oh, there you go. That's a good idea.
And those were a big help. And Chris Clemens, who's the double Cannonball run record holder, he did Cannonball run from east to west, took a picture, hopped back in the car, and drove west to east in like 74 hours, which is
he's an animal.
Insane.
Yeah.
He gave me a pack of some caffeine gum, and both of those were a big help to me.
Yeah. Because I would think at that point it's more sustained. You're kind of up on that horse a little bit. Yeah.
It was. After that run through Houston and the big adrenaline rush that was, I crashed. Come through Beaumont, Texas, into Louisiana. I'm watching the sun come up, and I feel myself struggling. And I had a moment where I literally had double vision. There was a tractor trailer in front of me as I was passing it, and I couldn't tell if it was in the right-hand lane or the left-hand lane.
Oh, yeah, that's dangerous.
And when I saw that, I said, stop. Just stop right now. You're going to hurt yourself. You're going to wreck your wife's car. You're going to get killed, or worse yet, you're going to hurt somebody else.
Yeah.
So I tucked in behind that tractor trailer. The car has adaptive cruise control. So I just hit it, followed him for a couple of miles to the next exit, turned off. It was a Cracker Barrel parking lot, parked there, and kicked back and took what I call a safety nap. It was in scuba diving world, there's a term you have with your dive buddies called calling the dive. If either one of you feel unsafe, having a bad day, whatever, you can call the dive, no questions asked. Well, I called the dive. It just,
Well, Gypsy said he promised to stop if he had to, and he keeps his promises. And then I want to address Carl Steamy. He says 5-hour energies ? They make me want to fight bears. You had a little bit of 5-hour energy on your trip to California. Mm-hmm. And I would think at this point with the coffee beans and the gum, probably going to try and refrain from any of that because of the harsh fall off the end of the caffeine run. Yep.
And that's what happened. 2 days of not enough sleep. The day and a half of the run before, and it all just kind of caught up to me and hit a point. I think if I would have stayed one more day in California, I could have made it nonstop. But it was I was reaching the limits of what my body could take. And so,
well, at that point you're up. Because if you were up at 3:30 that morning, you've got 4 or 5 hours worth of prep going down there. You're not sleeping after you drop her off at the, so like if you could have immediately finished the trip to LA, gone to San Diego, slept a day and a half and then done it, you know, who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
You'd have been maybe
So
4 hours further before you'd have decided to take a power nap. And how long was the nap? You may have said that a while ago, but
yeah, it was about 25 minutes, as best as I can tell. You know, I'm seconds after I parked the car and laid the seat back, I was asleep.
yeah,
And I heard my phone chime. My sister, who was watching the run on Glimpse, she sent me a message. You know, are you okay? You haven't moved in 20 minutes. You know, and that's what woke me up. And she's apologized. She's like, I feel bad for waking you up. I'm so sorry, but I was really worried about you. But it turned out to be kind of a good thing.
yeah,
Because, you know, when I set up, I was like, oh, wow. It was, you know, I felt just a 20-minute nap, felt fully energized, recharged. I stepped out of the car. I literally walked 3 or 4 laps around the car. You know, it was like, okay, all right. Let's take stock of the situation where you feel alert, you feel good, you're okay. Let's finish this. Hop back in the car, put it in drive, and made it the rest of the trip.
That's wild, man.
Yeah, I did it. That coast to coast run. It was my time was 30 hours, 38 minutes, and my total stop time, as for traffic, the power nap, everything, was 42 minutes.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Considering, I would think coming out, you know, coming from the beach through San Diego and stuff would still be. It's not going to be, you know, as crazy I think as LA, but like your traffic's still going to be pretty wild. And then, you know, what are some of the other big cities you would come through on that route?
Come through El Paso, Albuquerque.
Obviously Houston, yeah. Oh yeah, Albuquerque.
Houston, you know, and then, you know, well, I took the Interstate 12 to avoid, instead of continuing on I-10 around New Orleans, which is a little bit faster, and you miss some of that. So took I-12 on the northern side of Lake Pontchartrain.
Yeah, so and I guess that makes sense because if you're in Houston at 2 or 3 a.m., what time does that put you in New Orleans? I mean, that's got to be morning traffic in New Orleans.
It was, and there was a big construction delay on I-12 in New Orleans that I got off the interstate to skirt around it through some side roads briefly. You know,
that's cool
to get back on. So
that's pretty cool.
That added to some of the stop time.
Yeah.
But I pulled into Jacksonville Beach in Jacksonville. I stopped the timer, got out, made a quick video. Couple hours beforehand, I messaged my wife, and she got me a room, and she knew what was going on, so she found a hotel that was literally 100 feet from the roundabout in the sand at Jacksonville Beach. I mean, I could have left the car there and walked up to the hotel. You know?
That's awesome.
So, and you know, and rested for the night, and did not have to stop to fuel up the car. I had enough, plenty of gas to get it. Yeah. Interestingly enough, the next day after a nice breakfast and a drive home, I was like, well, let's see how far the car can make it home. And I drove, it was exactly 500 miles from the hotel parking lot to my driveway. And I drove that nonstop. I had enough fuel left in my auxiliary tanks, and when I pulled in my driveway, the auxiliary tanks were dead empty, not a drop in them, and I had a quarter tank of gas in the car's tank.
Wow.
So I drove 2,960 miles on 75 gallons of fuel.
So your math was right. It was the northern stuff and pushing the car that hard. What was your
exactly?
I didn't do the math there. I probably should have while you're telling the story. But what's that put your average mile per hour coming across? Is that like 80 something miles an hour?
Yeah, my average speed on the Musketball run come out to just under 80 miles an hour. It was 79 and change.
Wow.
And
that dang semi.
That wreck and the 48 miles of 2-lane roads at 10 miles an hour, you know, that killed it. But it was, you know, I'm looking forward to making an attempt again in the future.
Yeah.
I hope I get the opportunity to do one.
So let's talk. Let's take the next few minutes and talk prep for the next stuff. Like, what's your do you think you'll do Prius again? Do you think they'll do the Musketball type setup? Do you think you'll make a run maybe out of an event? And
Well, I have some ideas in my head of what I want to do. I don't want to quite reveal them publicly yet, but I'm also open to future events, being a co-driver with those, with a team. I'd like to experience that. So there's lots of opportunities out there, and we'll see what opens up and what happens next.
That's pretty cool. So to think that you were in the car by yourself at speed, with intention, I will say, for 6,000 miles, that's pretty amazing. Because I couldn't. And here's the other thing: in a week, like you did it in, So I don't know how far the drive is from North Carolina to Connecticut, but I would think it's probably 700 or 800 miles, maybe.
Yeah, it was a little over 600. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're doing that solo. Then you're a cross country solo, so you're 3,500 miles in right there, and then turn around and just go. Gypsy says nonstop Cannonball is doable at reasonable speeds.
It is. With the setup and everything I have, if I was to slow the speeds down, and where I get north of 40, it's very possible with everything I have now to do a solo nonstop Cannonball. Again, that's without. Yeah. Wouldn't set any world record times, I don't believe, but it would be a personal accomplishment.
Who's the guy that drove the Lexus across? It wasn't Fred Ashmore. It was a white Lexus SC400.
Oh, gosh, I'm trying to remember.
He was doing the solo.
Was that David Simpson?
That sounds right. I think that's right.
I'm looking up.
If you guys are whoever's watching, somebody will know it. I can't imagine spending that much time by myself in my own head. How many? Are you making phone calls during this time? Are you on the phone with people?
Well, that was
figure out how. I'd be brain damaged.
Thank you for bringing that up. I had two big support teams helping me. I had the RDF team that I set up a private channel on a Discord server, and these guys were there every minute that I was on the run, taking the data, cheering me on, rooting me on. But they went above and beyond. They did some very creative things, and this was their own ideas. They've started pulling up the traffic cameras of the various states along the run. They were pulling screenshots of the car, hunting for it as it come by. and in some of the states with the better traffic cameras, Florida examples, they were using the traffic cameras as a form of countermeasures.
Wow, that's
they
cool.
were sending me messages saying, at this exit in the median, there's a highway patrol setting, or when I'm in a big cluster of cars, I'm trying to get around. They say when you pass this RV that's pulling the blue trailer with a motorcycle on it, when you pass them, you're clear for 3 or 4 miles. When they were telling me this, I couldn't see that RV pulling the trailer, but they were feeding information back to me.
How cool.
And so that was a resource. Again, I never would have thought of that, but these guys I assembled are, a great team. One of the members has done a Cannonball run in the past, and he lives in Vancouver, so they were all over the country. And
that's pretty cool.
I got a surprise gift that I'm gonna be making and sending to these guys soon.
Oh,
so
cool.
I hope they appreciate it.
Yeah.
The second support group was something that my wife put together all on her own. I call it the Friends and Family Plan. She was calling me periodically, and she says, she asked, she says, "Do you mind these phone calls? Am I bothering you, disturbing me?" I'm like, "No." As a matter of fact, keep doing it.
Yeah.
You know, call me whenever you want. It actually cheers me up.
Yeah.
So she started a chat tree with my sister and some other close friends, and told them every 2 or 3 hours, call me.
Yeah.
And so my phone rang. I didn't know who was, when they were calling or anything, and I'd answer the phone, and they were cheering me on, rooting me on, and having that perk me up. You woke me up. It broke up the monotony of hours and hours at 100 plus. Exactly.
Broke up the Cake album. You're like, hey, hang on, that was a good song. I'll call you right back.
Yep. And so we were just, and so and this was something my wife put together on her own. So I had these 3 different groups of supporting me. The other participants in the Musketball through the joiner chat. I had the RDF group in that private forum with keeping up to date in the spreadsheets, and they were encouraging me. And then I had friends and family, my wife, my sister, calling me every 2, 3, 4 hours. And sometimes
really
those calls were short, sometimes they were long, sometimes we wouldn't even talk about what I was doing.
Yeah.
Just
talk about stuff.
Yeah. And
that's really cool.
Take my mind off thing, and those 3 groups together was a huge help. And so I also consider that safety.
Well, right. I mean, and it gives you a reason. Like, there's also all those other people watching you. One thought that just came to mind is, what would be your I don't know, dream build for something like this? Like, what's a build that you, or a car build that you would be like, this? If I had unlimited funds, this is what I would do.
Well, I have that car sitting in my driveway, and it's not a Prius.
Yeah, tell us.
I have a 1996 Chevrolet Impala Super Sport sitting in my driveway.
Yes, that would be a cool car to do this in.
One
you've got the room, and then 2, it's comfortable. And I mean, realistically, you could be under the radar in that car pretty easily.
Very much so. It's not super high horsepower.
Right.
I think it's rated like 250, 280 horsepower. This was mid 90s. 280 horsepower was a lot by today's standards. We get 4 cylinders for more than that. But it normal driving, you get reasonable 25, 26 miles per gallon fuel economy. So it's got the full frame and beefed up suspension, can handle the weight of auxiliary fuel tanks. So it's not that far out of the realm to consider taking these tanks that I have, putting them in the Impala, and and doing a run with it, and it's capable of 130 to 150 easy. And so that would be a nice car, a retired police car. Some of the old Ford Crown Vics would be another car that would be ideal for a run. And again, like you say, going under the radar. Yeah,
you could definitely sneak up on some folks because they're going to slow down because they're like, hey, why is this Crown Vic coming up on me?
Or today the Dodge Chargers, 4-door Dodge Charger retired police vehicle.
Now, I think personally, I would rather do. I think the Caprice is probably a better setup. Or I like the Crown Vic stuff, Grand Marquis. I mean, that's what we built our death card out of, mainly because that car is just beefy, and then it's funny because everybody always thinks horsepower is what wins that stuff, but really it's mile per gallon and gearing. So overdrive trans, 270 gear in the back, and a taller tire, and you're able to run 120 miles an hour at 2,500, 2,800 RPM, 3,500 RPM at the most, and you're getting good mileage, but you're also covering a ton of ground. I would think would be a big benefit.
Yeah. Well, like your Bryce and Matt proved with their 32-hour run in a 90-some horsepower, as they call it, shitbox, diesel. They only use 75-ish gallons of fuel and did a 32-hour run in a sub-100 horsepower car. Who would have ever dreamed in the Cannonball world that was even possible? It's just
Blows my mind. That's what I love about these. We've always steered more towards drag and drive event, drag race, car builder interviews. But obviously, having those guys on, having you on, this is endurance racing, endurance driving. Is I really enjoyed the thought process behind a lot of that.
Yeah, and the Musketball thing is going to shift the logic of some future attempts. I know some of these guys are probably have things going through their head of builds they want to do. Imagine a 35 miles to the gallon at 120 mile an hour TDI and some great handling car. With enough fuel. What kind of times you could do if the horsepower was doubled, which is easily to do in these TDI setups.
Yeah. Well, and you go back to the ingenuity of people's ability to take these cars and then push that next level instead of, because what gets publicized and all the dramatics behind is the 700, 900 horsepower car like Arnie and Doug did in the was that a Mercedes? I think it was a Mercedes that they made that run in. The car capable 190 mile an hour, things like that. Like that stuff gets sensationalized, but there's a lot more people that would probably have as much or more fun running something, a slow car fast. I mean, hell, that's the easiest way to put it. It's much more fun to run a slow car fast than a fast car slow.
Well, that's like Paul Newman. When he was filming a lot of his movies, he would go and bought these old Datsun 210s and put race tires on them, and we're going, him and the crew running around the racetrack doing lap times.
Yeah, yep.
Beating each other. And a famous race car driver was talking to Paul, says, why are you doing these Datsun 210s? What's going on here? And Paul Newman told him, says, well, you need to learn how to drive a slow car fast before you can drive a fast car fast.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
There's a lot of value in that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
So taking a slow car fast is a lot of fun, and who could imagine you could, a Prius would do over 400 miles in 4 hours on American public highways. Yeah,
that's pretty awesome.
My mind's blown just at that fact alone.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Well, man, I want to say thanks. We really kicked this off. I think I started following you 3 days ago, and it stemmed from there. And I'm glad you have taken the time, hour and a half on the Sunday morning to sit with us. I will be chopping some of this up. I think there's some really good content in this, and I'll be dropping shorter videos for folks that are watching this later. And obviously, this whole thing is going to be on our podcast. So, podcast you can find anywhere. So if you're into long distance driving, you can take this hour and a half and listen to Jay's stories.
So, well, Mike, it's an honor to have you on. Thank you very much, and want to just allow me to give a shout out to a few people. My wife. This could not have happened without her love and continued support and assistance.
Yes.
Going to shout out to all of the other members of the Musketball run, every single one of them. Just some of the finest, nicest, kindest folks you ever want to meet, and as well as to my team at the RDF community who were there every step of the way to help me along and cheer me along, and it's just, surround yourself with good people and you can succeed. And I obviously surrounded myself with a good bunch of people that were behind me 100%. So thanks to each and every one of you. It's much appreciated.
That's awesome. So one last question. Where's your next trip?
Probably going to be in either Ireland or Scotland.
What? I like it. You can't drive there, though.
Wife and I travel a lot, and we had some trips planned to Scotland before the COVID pandemic, and those got canceled. And so we're planning a trip, hopefully to Ireland in the spring and Scotland in the fall, in 2022, so we can catch up on some of those trips. So most beautiful places in the world I've ever been to is Scotland.
I can only imagine.
So if you get a chance to go.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you'll have to post some of that stuff on your Instagram.
I will.
GonzoPrius is the Instagram handle, and I can't wait to see future stuff from you.
All right, go.
For everybody that's listened, guys, thank you so much again. We really appreciate the support and the help. And I'll fix to get to work on the podcast room right now. Jay, you stay with me, guys. I'm hitting the end button right now.